When the Allies conquered Nazi Germany and liberated concentration camps, they came across scores of war crimes that needed punishing. Inside camps such as Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, hundreds of thousands of prisoners were suffering and subjected to true atrocities such as diseases, starvation, and ultimate poor living conditions that were upheld by these evil guards. But when Bergen-Belsen was liberated, the British discovered a number of female guards, and many around the world were shocked to see how some of these young women had inflicted such evil unto other people. Of the roughly 50,000 guards that served inside of the Nazi concentration camps, around 5,000 of them were women, and they were responsible for upholding law and order in the women's camps. Many of these women had grown up with the Nazi race laws and sought to serve Hitler in his plan to exterminate certain races from the face of Europe. But what is the real story behind the terrifying female guards at these camps? To help support the channel, kindly subscribe and leave us a comment. In line with recruitment, female Nazi guards tended to be from lower to middle-class backgrounds. The guards usually had little or no relevant work experience with prisons or similar areas under their belt upon recruitment. It was also common for their professional backgrounds to heavily vary, since there were no requirements other than simply being willing to carry out orders. They came from all walks of life, from women who worked on trams, hairdressers, waitresses, former teachers, actors, and singers as well. Many of these guards joined the SS because of the incentives offered and the fact that they could earn more money, and a higher social status that they were accorded in their normal jobs was a no-brainer. They reacted to advertisements in which women were encouraged to show their support for the German Reich and were invited to join the SS retinue, an SS sub-organization for women. In certain situations, female offenders were recruited and granted freedom in exchange for serving as guards in these camps. In addition to these recruitment efforts, there was a feeder organization known as the League of German Girls that indoctrinated young women into wanting to join the SS and eventually acquire a genuine hatred for specific ethnicities. These women were usually sent to concentration camps to observe and learn how to become prison guards. They were taught by experienced members of staff such as Maria Mandel on how to inflict a reign of terror and absolute horror onto the inmates. Irma Graf was an SS guard serving at the concentration camps of Auschwitz and Ravensbrück. She also served as a warden on the women's section of Bergen-Belsen. Irma Graf was known as the Beautiful Beast, and she would regularly patrol with her dog and encouraged her dog to attack prisoners. Graf was also known for her evil in terms of exterminating prisoners with her whip and pistol. She is particularly notorious for her sexual violence against inmates. She was also known for her frequent sexual relationships with a number of other guards. One of her lovers was none other than Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death. She was part of the gas chamber selection and often chose women based on whether she believed them to be more beautiful than she was. Graf had a thing for personal grooming, expensive custom clothing, and the overuse of perfume, which was believed to be a deliberate act of sadism against the female inmates who obviously had nothing. After the liberation of the camps, Graf was convicted of crimes involving murder and ill-treatment of prisoners and was consequently given the maximum sentence at the age of 22 during the Belsen trial. Maria Mandel was an Austrian SS guard working at Auschwitz, where she is believed to have been responsible for ending the lives of over 500,000 female inmates. At the start of her career, Mandel oversaw things like daily roll calls as well as punishments such as beatings. She later progressed to being the top female ranked guard with full control and say over the female Auschwitz camps. Mandel earned herself the nickname The Beast after she was regularly known for partaking in the selection for the gas chambers and other forms of mass punishment. Mandel created the Women's Orchestra of Auschwitz, which was for the purposes of accompanying selections, transportations, and daily roll call. The female inmates were made to march in time to the music, even after coming back exhausted from forced labor. For her crimes against humanity, Mandel was sentenced to death at the age of 36. Herdaboda was a Nazi concentration camp guard at Ravensbrück-Stutthof and Bergen-Belsen. She was recorded to have been 6'3" and known as the sadist of Stutthof due to her merciless treatment of female prisoners. At the age of 24, she accompanied a ruthless march of women from central Poland to Bergen-Belsen. At the Belsen trial, she claimed that she had stuck prisoners with her hand as a means of discipline but never used an instrument to do so, nor did she claim to have ended anyone's life. In a rare interview she said, "I made no mistake. The mistake was that it was a concentration camp, but I had to go to it, otherwise, I would have been put into it myself. That was my mistake." She also outlined that when the camps were liberated, she was forced to bury rotting corpses in mass graves. She stated that those forced were not allowed to wear gloves and had to carry them themselves with no aid whatsoever. Elisabeth Volkenrath was a supervisor at a variety of Nazi concentration camps during World War II. Volkenrath was in charge of selecting prisoners for the gas chambers and later became in charge of all camp selections for female prisoners. She stood trial in the Belsen trial and was eventually sentenced to death after being found guilty of crimes against humanity. Strictly speaking, Koch was not an SS guard herself, but her husband Karl Koch was the commander of Buchenwald. Using his power, he granted her a position in the camp where she earned a reputation and was called the Witch of Buchenwald. She was known to have often inspected prisoners upon arrival to see if they had any interesting tattoos on their skin. If she ever saw anything she liked, she would have the prisoners processed and use their skin to make items like lampshades or book covers. Koch was actually acquitted in 1944 after the lack of evidence, whereas her husband was sentenced. Later, she was sentenced to life imprisonment and later took her own life in 1967 at the age of 60 out of shame and desperation. It has been reported that she suffered from severe delusions where she became convinced that any concentration camp survivors would come and attack her in her cell. All these innocent souls suffered at the merciless hands of these female guards and many more. The ideology of racism, hatred, and pure evil was given the chance to thrive, and hence the devastation. Hope you found our video informative. Kindly subscribe to the channel for more videos.